Hello, and welcome to part 2 of my hospital journey from being inpatient. So we left off with the last video, which I will link down below, video number 1. And it was right before, I packed my bag to go to the hospital. So I'm gonna turn to my notes now. Let's see how much I wrote. Okay, so I did not date any of these, but I just wrote Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And these first few notes are not from immediately when things happened. They're from when I got this journal on late Sunday. Yeah. So I got it on Sunday and I was just I need to remember everything. And then I started jotting it down as things happened. So Saturday, I started going to the hospital. So there are 2 hospitals near me, but one is very busy and one is not busy. We didn't know if the one that's not busy, that one's a little bit out of the way, but we didn't know if they had a psych ward or not, but we do know there, you'll get pulled straight back, there's no wait time, you'll instantly get pulled back. And so we went to that one, and they were like, oh, well, we don't have a psych ward here, we can't do any, this is the person at the front. She had no clue what she was doing. We pulled up and they were like, oh, what's the emergency? And I'm tears, dried on my face. I'm pale. I look like shit. You can tell that I just finished having, a horrible breakdown. And I didn't bring my phone into the hospital with me because I was like, well, they're just going to take it in the psych ward, so why bother bringing it in? But I did have it with me in the car to tell people, hey, I'm not gonna be here for a little bit. But the woman was just well, why, what's your emergency? And my mom was like, yeah, he just tried to kill himself, and, he needs to be admitted. And she was like, well, we can't do anything about that. We don't have a psych ward here. And, she literally said, well, what do you want us to do about it, or something like that. My mom was like, well, he needs to be admitted to a psych ward. She was like, yeah, but we don't have one here. And she was like, well, can you transfer him to a hospital who does? And, I will give my mom credit. She's really usually bad at using my pronouns, but I kind of, she said she one time, and I looked at her and I was like, he. Because I explained to her one of my concerns was about rooming, and I was really, really worried about what they were going to do with roomings, because most places you get a roommate. And when I was in the psych ward, when I was inpatient, when I was much younger, around 14, I knew I was trans at that point, and I was out to my friends, but I wasn't on hormones and I hadn't had any surgery, so it was whatever, I'll just be roomed with the girl. But it's a little different now because I have been hormonally transitioning and I have had one surgery, and I was like, I don't want to be roomed with anyone who's uncomfortable with me, and I also don't want to feel uncomfortable because I know that I do not read as male. I know most people read me as female, but I also have a masculine chest, and that was a big concern. And so because I think my mom was a little bit trying a little bit harder to use he, because she knew it was something I was concerned about, and she knew it's a stressor for me and she didn't want to stress me out more. So she finally convinces them no, you need to pull my child back. And they look at me and they're like, well, you're 19, do you want to be here? And I was just kind of yeah, I do want to be here. They're not forcing me, I'm voluntarily here, I need help. And so they pulled me back, and the hospitals are usually the harshest. They're they take all your stuff, they make you wear a hospital gown, you're not allowed to wear anything else other than a hospital gown, and they usually take everything. And one of the things is I have this blanket here that my cat is laying on that I can't get, but this is the only thing I have left that still smells like paws. And that was one of the things I was like, no, you can't take my blanket. You can take everything else. I don't care about my doll. I don't care about my clothes. You can take those, but you cannot take my blanket. This is a big coping skill for me. And they took my blanket for a little bit, but then a nurse who was a lot nicer came in, and we asked about, my mom and I asked about my blanket again, and she was like, yeah, I think we can get that arranged. And she gave me my blanket back, and I got to keep my blanket Thank God. Like, I was, like, sobbing until they handed me my blanket back, and I was, like, literally, like, in the fetal position because I was already having such a hard breakdown, and then they took the one thing from me that gave me comfort in the moment. Like, obviously my mom was there, and that helped. I would have been more afraid if I was alone, but, like, taking my blanket from me just made me feel so much more vulnerable, because one of the things I use it for is pressure therapy. Like, I'll wrap it around me really tight and I'll hold it there, and pressure therapy helps calm me down a lot, and the added smell of my dog helps, especially because this was like fresh, like a week after he died. But they gave my blanket back. I was there for about an hour or two. We went there at like 4 in the morning, so it was about 2 hours, yeah. They got like a urine sample from me, and they didn't do any blood work there, which I was kind of surprised about. I thought they would, but then they transferred me to the busier hospital, and I was in the ambulance, and I saw the time in the ambulance was like 6 a.m. And the whole time, like, my mom was there, so they didn't make me have a sitter. But then when I was transferred to the emergency room in the other hospital, I had to have a sitter because my mom left at that point. She was like, I need to go get sleep. It's too early, which is understandable. And she had to, like, email my professors from my laptop and, like, she had to call my work and let them know I wasn't coming in and that I was in the hospital. But the guy in the ambulance was amazingly nice. Like, he was one of the nicest people, and he even told me, he's like, I don't want to see you back in here, but if I do see you, I'm gonna ask you how you've been and hope you get better. And like, he was just so understanding and sweet. Like, there were some people who like treat you like a mental case, like you're just like this completely non-functional, not able to do anything, speaking gibberish, not cooperating at all, like, nutbag. And it's like, I'm literally just having a really hard time right now. Like, please treat me like a human. Please, like, just common decency would be nice for me. Thanks. But, in the hospital, in the ER there, I found out I could have had my phone. Like, I couldn't have had it when I was in the hospital, but when I got transferred, they were like, yeah, you could have had your phone. And I was like, well shit. Like, I wanted my phone. And so I was in the ER for a long time. Like, I was in there until I think 1 p.m., so from like 6:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. I was in the ER, and I got little bits of sleep on and off. Like, I already had insomnia, like to the point where I was only getting like an hour of sleep. So, but I didn't get any sleep that night. So I was getting like little bits, like I get like 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there. I was allowed to watch TV while I was in there, which was great. And every now and then someone from the psych ward would come down and be like, yeah, we don't have a room for you yet, but don't worry, we're working on it. We're trying to get people out and we'll get you in. And it'll be nicer in the psych ward. You'll be able to walk around on your own because there won't be anything dangerous you could hurt yourself with, and you won't have a sitter. And I was like, okay. And I was just waiting to go to the psych ward, and I thought that's where I would stay. Boy, was I wrong about wanting to go to the psych ward. Now, I will preface this with, not all hospital psych wards are like this. Not all hospital psych wards do this, okay? I've heard that there are other ones near me that are much better for holding psych wards before you go to a facility, but the one I was at was awful. Like, completely. I was at Christiana Care in Newark, or not Christiana Care, Christiana Hospital in Newark, and like, they literally, the whole unit was 3 rooms. I'm not even exaggerating. It was 3 rooms. So even if I wanted to get up and walk around, I would have had just a little path. And like, they knew I was tired, and so when they brought me in there, they had the lights dimmed in my room. And mind you, there's no door, it's just a curtain. And they closed the curtain for me. They're like, oh, we'll give you privacy. I had a chair that was uncomfortable and barely reclined, and a desk. I'm not kidding, that is all I had. And I was like, okay, well, can I, like, put on my clothes since I'm not in the hospital section anymore, like in the ER, and they were like, no, technically, since you're in the hospital, you need to have a hospital gown on. I was just like they let me keep my boxers on, but I still, like, I would have felt more comfortable if I was in my own clothing, you know? And they let me keep my blanket, and I, like, begged and begged for my book, and they gave me my book, but my anxiety was so bad. I was like, I don't want to open the curtain, I don't want to go out there, I don't want to do anything. Like, I was freaking out in there. I felt like I was in solitary confinement, and it was so, like, unnervingly quiet. Like, not the calm kind of quiet, like, it was eerie and uncomfortable, and I felt so uncomfortable, and my anxiety was just taking over, and I was like, I can't do anything, I'm gonna be stuck here. And originally they were like, yeah, you might be here overnight, we can't find a room for you. And I was like, oh my god, I don't even have a bed, I'm only in a chair, I'm so tired, I need to eat, but I can't eat because I'm not hungry, I can't, like, voice anything about what I want because I'm so anxious. And I ended up, like, asking them for the phone, and I was like, can I call my mom? And I called my mom from their phone, and I, like, talked with her for a while, and she was like, you need to get up and go ask them to turn the lights on. And I was like, I tried, and I literally couldn't even get out of my seat because I was so anxious from the way that place was run. And, like, it was terrible. And there was a shift change while I was there, and one of the guys who came by was a lot nicer, and he helped me feel a little bit less anxious, and he, like, chatted with me a little bit, which kind of, even though I have social anxiety, like, that actually helped distract me from all the other anxieties I was having. But he was really nice, and, like, I was able to just kind of stay on the phone and chat with my mom and stepdad just to keep my mind off of things a little bit. But one of the things about that place, there were no clocks, and the bathroom had no mirror. Like, I've seen some psych wards where they won't have a glass mirror, and I get that, I understand why, but they have, like, a reflective metal sheet, so it's not perfect, but you can still see what you look like. Like, I don't know what it is about going into a bathroom and not seeing a mirror, but there is something so unnerving about that. Like, it just makes you feel like you're less than human. And it was... honestly, while I was in there, I was calling my mom, and I was like, I can't do this, you need to come pick me up, like, I cannot handle this, I'm gonna be here overnight, it's not okay, I cannot be here overnight. And I was having, like, a full, like, another breakdown, and it was bad. And of course, by this point, like, every nurse who comes by has to ask you, like, so why are you here, to write it down on their paperwork. By this point, I'm burned out from saying I am here. Like, I'm done talking about it. But 4 hours went by, and it felt like a friggin' eternity because of the fact that there were no clocks in there. And even reading my book, like, it just made everything feel so much longer. I don't know why, but, like, I think not having any clocks was really messing with me, because that's a big important thing that most psych wards will have. They'll write, like, the day, and they'll have some clocks so you can see the time, because it's important to still know, like, what day and time it is. That's a really important thing. It helps you, like, continue moving through things. But yeah, it was just absolutely horrible. But one of the social workers found a place for me at a 72-hour holding facility, and I was like, all right. That was called Recovery International Crisis Center. But they transferred me over there, and I was taken, like, in an ambulance to there. And thank God I didn't have to spend the night in that psych ward, because I would have literally not gotten any sleep because I was so anxious. And, like, this whole time I hadn't gotten any medication either. Like, it was bad. So I'm looking down at, like, my notes. Okay, so at around 5 o'clock, I was transferred over to RIC, and that place was much, much nicer. Like, wow. And they let me, like, change into my clothes before I got into the ambulance. So I got to, like, go into the little room that I had in the psych ward and put my clothes on. And I went through the ambulance with my clothes on, which was really nice. Like, the whole time I'm calling my mom and keeping her updated on everything. But this place was way nicer than, like, it was way nicer than I expected it to be. And like, even because when I was 14 and I was inpatient, the place I was at, like, you could only, mind you, I was a minor at the time, so things were a little bit different, but there were like no windows. We hardly got any time to even see the outside. The only access you had to a phone was 5 minutes for one phone call to a family member. I remember I was like, well, my mom and dad are, like, never been married. They're 2 different numbers. They were like, all right, you get 2.5 minutes per phone call. Like, they were that strict about phone calls. And so I was expecting, like, no TVs or anything, like, no free watching TV, unless it was, like, something that they put on. So I was expecting that again, and I get there, and there's, like, all these windows, and there's, like, snacks available at every time, like, whenever you want, and, like, they were playing Netflix on this big TV, and they had a patient phone that everyone shared that you could use to call anyone you wanted, and it was so, like, not nice, but it was better than what I expected, and the amount of windows was amazing. Like, all the windows had that, like, frost stuff on them so that, like, you couldn't see out and they couldn't see in, but, like, the top ones didn't have any, so you could, like, see the trees and you could see natural light. Like, natural light is so important, and I don't know how, like, psych wards don't get this yet, but natural light is insanely important. But they had a counselor come and talk to me, like, after I got admitted and everything. They had a counselor come and talk to me, and of course he's like, so why are you here? And I just looked at him and I was like, I have had such a horrible 24 hours, and I have told at least, like, 25 people why I'm here, and I just really don't want to talk about it anymore, and I don't want to talk about it right now. And he was like, okay, that's understandable. I get it. And he was really nice about it, and he was just kind of like, whenever you want to come talk to me. This place only had 2 groups a day, which at the, like, I don't know, I felt really bored from it, and we never got to go outside as well. This place did not let us outside at all. There was nowhere where we could go outside that was, like, closed in. But overall, like, it wasn't that bad. I did not have a room the first night, because, like, the people on the morning shift, the day shift was really nice. Like, I loved everyone in the day shift, but the night shift, there was only, like, one person who was okay. And, like, even the workers agreed with that, because I was talking about it with the guy when I was leaving, and, like, even they agreed, like, yeah, the day shift was way better than the night shift. But there was this one guy on day shift who was really, really sweet. And I expressed my rooming concerns to them. Like, I was very vocal. I was like, I am trans. I use he, him. I've been hormonally and surgically transitioning. I need to be in a room either with another transgender person or with, or, like, by myself. And I never said that specifically, but I was like, my rooming concerns. And so I explained that to them, and they were like, okay, well, we're just not going to put you in a room tonight because you'll probably only be here tonight. And this is on Sunday, mind you. Like, by this point, this is all happening on Sunday. Like, well, you're not going to be here tonight, so you'll be fine. And then they kept me out in there were, like, pull-down bed things that were in the main, like, room. Because the way these things are set up, they're all set up like this. There's one main area where everyone socializes, I should say. And then there's, like, rooms all around it, and, like, a meeting room, and, like, a doctor's room, and a nurse's room. I slept out in that room, and it made me really nervous because I don't have my hearing aid in. I have it over here. But yeah, like, my hearing aid, I was like, I can't take it out because I'm afraid, like, something will happen to it, and this little thing is $2,000. So I had to sleep with my hearing aid in and just, like, turn it off, so that was a little bit uncomfortable. But at this place, they let me keep my stuffed animal, which was really nice because I brought my little stuffed Evie with me, and it gave me a lot of comfort because it felt like holding my dog, because not the same, but it was similar. On Monday, I did not see a psychiatrist until 2 p.m., and he literally talked to me for about 10 minutes, and he was like, well, you're probably bipolar. And I was kind of looked at him, I was like, I know the symptoms of bipolar disorder, and it runs in my family, so it's something I've been monitored for, but I have not seen any of those symptoms in me, and my mother hasn't seen them, and my therapist hasn't seen them. Like, no one has seen these symptoms. And he like pulled up this checklist online or whatever, and he asked me a bunch of questions, and some of them were related to my testosterone. He was like, well, have you had an increased sex drive? I was like, well, yes, that started about 2 months on testosterone. Like, that was a side effect of testosterone. And like any boy going through puberty, you get a higher sex drive. And then he was like, oh, well, have you been getting irritable more? And I was like, again, testosterone. Like, it doesn't change your personality, but it does, like, again, you're going through puberty, and like, if you went through a female puberty, you know, you like cry over nothing, and you don't know why you're crying, so it makes you cry more, and someone says the wrong thing to you, and you cry again. It's the exact same thing, but with anger. You get angry for no reason, and you don't know why, and it's your testosterone. Or, like, someone says the wrong thing to you, and you get really irritated at them for no reason. It's the testosterone, and it's something that I'm learning to work with. I'm working on it with my therapist, and he was like, oh, well, you being on testosterone confuses everything. And every psychiatrist I met with was like, well, are you happy in your transition? I was like, yes. My transition has been amazing. Like, yeah, there's some things that I'm not, like, too pleased with the pace it's going and stuff, but, like, overall, I am such a happy person since I have transitioned. Like, everything has been better since I transitioned. It's just these last few months that have sucked ass. Like, I don't know, I felt kind of, like, not judged, but they were like, well, is that a reason why you're depressed? I was like, no. It has helped my depression tenfold. But yeah, like, he ended up keeping me on the same medication that I was on, that I told him, I was like, I don't want to be on this medication anymore. I had a really bad reaction to it. I feel terrible on it. And he was like, I wanted to leave at that point because I thought that I didn't need to go into an inpatient facility, because I thought I was good. But we called my mom, and my mom, like, told him that she didn't think I was bipolar, but he explained why he thought it would be a good idea to keep me inpatient, basically to monitor me on the medication, and it sounded like a good idea, and my mom agreed, and I was a little reluctant because I didn't want to go because they said 5 to 7 days. I was like, that's a lot of days. But I ended up agreeing because I really did need the monitoring, because I wasn't sure if I was going to have another bad reaction, especially since I was kept on the same medication, even though I didn't want to be. And I apologize for the lighting getting, like, more and more shitty. The sun is setting, and I use natural lighting. I saw the psychiatrist at 2 p.m., and at 5 p.m., I went up and asked the people at the desk, I was like, hey, so how are we looking on transferring me? Because there's 2, like, big places they could have transferred me, which was Rockford or Meadowood, and I've heard really, really bad things from Rockford. I've never heard a single good thing come out of Rockford, and I've heard that they're, like, really, like, not good with trans people either, like, they're not educated on it, whereas I've heard good things about Meadowood, and, like, obviously, like, Google reviews are going to be biased because there's going to be people that were like, oh, I'm not crazy, I don't need to be in there, all they do is drug you up, blah, blah, blah. Like, they're always going to be, like, negatively biased, but you can look at, like, family reviews and even patient reviews and see what they said. And, like, at this place, we had limited internet access, which was, like, mind-blowing to me. Like, I can get on my email. I could, like, actually, we went on Google Hangouts on my email, and my friends and I chatted through Google Hangouts, so I wouldn't hog the phone. But, like, I Googled the reviews for both of them beforehand, and I'm, like, Meadowood had better reviews, and I had heard, like, word of mouth better things about them, so I told them, like, I want to go to Meadowood. Like, I know that's where I want to. They said I would have to stay overnight because they forgot to transfer my paperwork. I know. They literally forgot about me because I was quiet, because I was anxious, and I just kind of sat in the corner. So they finally faxed my paperwork, like, late at night, and they were like, yeah, you're gonna have to stay here another night, and we'll get you discharged tomorrow. And I was like, okay, well, they said they were working on a room for me. Do you have a room? And by this point, it's the night shift guy. And he looks at me, and he's like, no, you're just gonna sleep out there. Like, why don't you understand that? Because of your situation, you can't have a room, because we can't take up a double room with just one person. And there were, like, empty rooms at this point, too. And I was just kind of like, okay, I'm sorry. Like, I just want a place to put my stuff. And then when I went to take my medicine a little bit later, the nurse asked me if I wanted earplugs, and the nurse's station was right next to this guy's desk. And I was like, oh no, because I'm sleeping out here, I can't take my hearing aid out, so I can't really use them. I just have to turn my hearing aid off in my ear. And, like, I wouldn't be able to use earplugs on top of that. It'd be too uncomfortable. And then, magically, out of nowhere, all of a sudden, there's a room I can go in. And he was like, okay, like, he pulls me over, he's like, you can go in room 17. And I was like, really? Like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, go in room 17, you're fine. I was like, all right, I'll take it. So I took my sleeping meds, and I took my night medication, and I went over, and I went to sleep in that room. And the next day, I got discharged pretty quickly, and transferred to another facility, but we're at 26 minutes, and I still have to edit this down. So I'm gonna end this one now, and I'm gonna talk about my transfer in the next video, so I'll link that down below whenever it's done.